All right, let's take a trip to a place that sounds, well, pretty bleak. Its name in Persian, Dasht-e Lut, literally means the empty plain. We're talking about a massive desert in southeastern Iran that looks for all the world like it's completely hostile to life. But we're going to dive in, because this seemingly empty land is holding some incredible secrets about just how clever and resilient we can be.
And look, when I say hostile, I am not kidding around. Get this, in 2018, NASA satellites clocked a land surface temperature here of a jaw-dropping 80.8 degrees Celsius. That's 177 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's not the air temp, you guys, that's the ground itself. We're talking hot enough to literally cook on. This measurement basically sealed the deal, cementing the Lut Desert's reputation as the thermal pole of the Earth. It is, without a doubt, the hottest spot on the planet.
You know, for centuries, people have just written this place off as abiotic, a scientific way of saying nothing can live there. It seems like the absolute last place on Earth you'd go looking for anything interesting. But what if that whole idea is just wrong? What if this barren wasteland was actually once home to a buzzing, innovative, and thriving civilization?
Okay, so to really get the story of this place, we first have to understand the heat. I mean, how does one single spot on our planet get that hot? It's not just random bad luck. It's this perfect storm of geology and weather coming together to create an oven.
So yeah, here's the recipe for creating the hottest place on Earth. First, you've got mountains all around it that literally block any rain from getting in. That's what a rain shadow is. Then the ground itself is covered in this dark volcanic sand, which just soaks up the sun's heat instead of reflecting it. And to top it all off, the whole area is shaped like a bowl, so there's nowhere for that superheated air to go. It just gets trapped in there, getting hotter and hotter.
What's amazing is that the very same things that make it so hot are also what create one of the most alien-looking landscapes you will ever see. For months at a time, these really strong winds just blast across the desert floor, carving everything into these wild, beautiful shapes that honestly look like they belong on another planet.
And this is where you see the desert's two totally different personalities. Over in the west, it's all about erosion. The wind is a sculptor, carving away at these old, dried-up lake beds and creating these enormous, ridged formations called Yardangs, or Kalouts. But then you go to the east, and it's a zone of deposition. All that sand the wind picked up gets dropped, piling up into these truly colossal sand seas. Some of those dunes get up to 475 meters tall. That is taller than the Empire State Building. And this quote just nails the feeling of that western zone. You're not just looking at a bunch of random rocks. The wind has shaped them into something that looks architectural. From a distance, you would swear you were looking at the ruins of some lost ancient city. It's why people call it Mars on Earth. But here's the kicker. There actually was a lost city here.
So let's shift gears and head over to the western edge of this desert, because this is where an absolutely incredible story of human survival unfolds. Hiding right out in the open was the proof of a complex urban civilization that flourished here thousands of years ago, a city called Shaddad.
Now, just to give you some perspective here, Shaddad wasn't some tiny, isolated little village. It rose to prominence around the same time as the great civilizations in Mesopotamia and Egypt. Think about it. At its peak, around 2500 BCE, while the Great Pyramid of Giza was still a fairly new wonder of the world, Shaddad was a major urban center, connecting some of the biggest players in the ancient world.
And believe me, this was no simple town. We're talking about a metropolis of over 20,000 people. These guys were master metalworkers. They actually understood complex chemistry. They figured out that adding arsenic to copper made a much stronger bronze. They were also international traders, bringing in lapis lazuli from modern-day Afghanistan and creating these beautiful luxury goods that were traded all across the ancient world. And maybe the most famous thing ever found in Shaddad is this, the oldest flag in the world. And it's not made of cloth, it's this solid square of bronze. Its design is so intricate, showing gods, goddesses, animals, palm trees. It gives us this incredible little snapshot of a rich, vibrant culture that had mastered both art and metalworking in one of the toughest environments imaginable. So this obviously brings us to the biggest question of all, right? How on earth did a city of 20,000 people, with farming and industry and art, survive, let alone thrive, in a place that is now the hottest spot on the planet? Well, the answer isn't on the surface. It's deep, deep underground. They did it with an absolutely brilliant invention called the qanat. It's this incredible, sustainable water system that runs entirely on gravity. And it was designed for one simple, vital purpose: get water from the mountains to the city without letting it all evaporate under that brutal desert sun. And the way it works is just pure genius. Okay, so first, workers would dig a really deep well up at the base of the mountains to hit the water table. Then they'd start digging a horizontal tunnel with just a very gentle slope, all the way back to their city, sometimes for miles and miles. Those vertical shafts you see from the air, they're basically just for air and for maintenance. The real magic is that the water travels the whole way underground, moved only by gravity, arriving in the city cool, clean, and completely safe from evaporation. It's amazing.
So, you see, when you put all these pieces of the puzzle together, the Lut Desert completely transforms. It goes from being this simple, barren wasteland into a land of incredible paradoxes. What we think we see at first glance is not the real story at all.
I mean, look at this. Our perception is of an empty and barren land. The reality? It was home to a major metropolis. We see a place that's lifeless, abiotic. The reality? It was the site of some of the most brilliant engineering in human history. We see a wasteland, but the world sees a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And that right there is the ultimate paradox. The Lut Desert itself is a UNESCO World Heritage Site because of its incredible natural wonders, those crazy Yardangs and massive dunes. But then, the Persian Qanat system also got its own UNESCO designation for its cultural ingenuity. You have the problem, the extreme nature, and the solution, the human innovation, both being celebrated as treasures of our world.
Which really makes you think, doesn't it? As our own world gets hotter and as water becomes more and more scarce, you have to wonder, what other brilliant, ancient solutions like this have we forgotten about? The secrets of the hottest place on Earth might just hold some of the most important lessons for our future.